Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 3Commas podcast. My name is Jared Wynn. I'm an advisor for 3Commas, and I'm excited to bring into today's discussion Joe Vezzani with one of the leading indicators of social influence, LunarCrush. Joe, thank you so much for joining us today.
Jared, thank you for having me, man. It's great to see you.
Absolutely, man. So Joe and I, we've known each other for a while, back in the early stages of ideation of this project. And, as traders, we always look towards what are ways that we can get the leading edge? How can we be a little bit further or have a little bit more of an edge of the next person, right? And LunarCrush, in my opinion, is exactly that. LunarCrush is essentially, well, why am I saying it? Joe, let's hear from you. Tell us a bit about you and tell us a bit about LunarCrush.
For sure. Well, I'm Joe Vezzani. I'm the CEO, co-founder of LunarCrush. We started back in 2018, launched our beta in 2019, kind of found crypto just like everyone else. Like, what is this whole Bitcoin thing? Back in 2015, my co-founder, John, and, he came to me one day and he asked me that question. And, ever since that moment on, everything has kind of changed for me. But when we, 2017, 2018, Ethereum comes out, we're looking at this kind of proliferation of tokens out there. And it's like, as an investor, as a trader, you're trying to understand, like, what is the difference between, project number 485 and project number 85? And why is there a difference in what's going on when, some of these projects, they don't have earnings reports, their teams are not even doxed, they're pseudo-anonymous, like, what's going on? And that's where we kind of always came up with this. We coined the phrase, without a community, there is no crypto. And you see that everywhere now. Everyone talks about community, but this was long before like Wall Street bets and GameStop and all that stuff that went on, which like definitely was a tailwind for us. But what we're doing is we're aggregating social data from places like Twitter, Reddit, YouTube, and we probably have the largest source of news, crypto specific news on the internet now, period. And what we're doing is we're kind of combing that data for, 3,500 different cryptocurrencies. And in real time, we're ingesting that data, we're cleaning it for spam, we're organizing it down to thousands of coin detail pages on lunarcrush.com. And what we're trying to do is really understand a signal around which communities kind of have this groundswell of activity over time that you can kind of point to and say, hey, this is a project that looks like it, depending on what type of trader you are, looks like it has kind of this swell of community flowing behind it. And so it's like, if you're some sort of swing trader and you're out there looking for maybe a longer period hold, it's like, you're going to look for maybe these projects that have that. We have other indicators that will show a social engagement spike like that. So it's something gets tweeted or something gets posted, it starts to kind of catch fire. You can go on to lunarcrush.com, our apps, and you can set alerts for all this stuff. And so what we're really trying to do is create transparency around the communities across all the cryptocurrencies that are in existence, or as many as we can that are tradable in real time.
Well, it sounds like a tremendous undertaking and a lot of server power, I would imagine, that goes behind this.
Yeah, it's our CTO is quite the magician, but it's not like there's no silver bullet to this. It's like when there's other projects that are out there that are aggregating price data, it's like, hey, when something gets listed onto an exchange, like, sure, here comes the price information done. When you're adding social data and you're adding community data and you're trying to kind of parse through that in an accurate and organized way, there's some machine learning that goes into that. There's, a nuance to the way that you start to track a project. And so, for us, that's kind of always been that the special sauce is that there is no special sauce, and it is just manual to go in and like really look at each project individually and make sure that it's being aggregated the right way. And so just created a huge difference between us and a lot of the competition out there. Is like, we've gone through and we've really built out a system where now that we can add a project and bam, like we now have the feeds of everything that's happening.
Absolutely. And you guys have a lot of industry backing in that respect as well. I remember when we first started discussion, you guys were an idea and you guys had, and I told you, I was like, I am so passionate about this because human psychology and of course the impact that has mathematically on various economies is fascinating to me. But tell us a bit as well about your backing. Who's behind LunarCrush and so forth?
Yeah, no, I remember those days of like, I remember you coming to like, it was the LA Blockchain Summit when I first had met you, and you were just
Crypto
like
Invest Summit at the time.
Yeah, Crypto Invest Summit. Yeah, but you were just like in the early days, the same thing as everyone else. Like, there's something here. There's something here. What's going on? It's like, and for us, we were actually in the same stages there of like, there's something here. There's something here, but we didn't really know. We just knew that we wanted to chase it. But that's a good place to answer that question. Is one of our first investors was Draper Goren Holm. Lon, Joseph, Tim Draper. They're part of the Draper Venture Network out of the LA area. We actually did a Techstars program back in 2019. We were kind of going that traditional like VC route, and that's kind of where the world was at. I mean, when we started like even going out there to raise money, people were like, thought like Bitcoin was like gone. Like I thought this was like dead. And I was just like,
You
what?
guys grew in a bear market essentially.
Yes. Yeah. No, people thought we were insane at that moment because it was still a moment in time where people thought obviously Bitcoin was going to survive, but they thought everything else was dead and we were just blinders on, like, let's go. And so, I mean, that's proven pretty well. But yeah, I mean, we have a huge subset of investors and partners and people that have helped us along the way, which have who believe in what we're doing and they believe in the mission that we have. I would say I'm pretty proud of the way that we've grown the business and the kind of like benefactors that have come behind us. I mean, it's like talking with a lot of the different companies in the Valley and everything now. It's like some of the board meetings, some of the ways that they have to grow these businesses and some of the numbers that they have to go for. It's like the creativity is lost in some of these businesses once you hit a certain level. And I've never wanted that.
Benchmarks and
I never wanted that for the team. I've never wanted that for the way that we grew the business. And so, we've had some really awesome, probably a lot of people that, no one's really heard of, but have, we've got people that have invented software that, half of the internet is running on right now that are part of what we're doing that, I can't talk about. These are just the type of people that I've always kind of sought after because I think that they believe in the creativity, they believe in product. And
it's all about vision, right? Like, and that's what attracted me to crypto is well, one, the underlying technology was fascinating, but two, the passion of the individuals that essentially are leaving the complacency and stability of Web 2 jobs and careers, right? You're jumping into this out of vision and passion, and you have to align not only with your partners, but your investors that have that same type of philosophy in that respect.
100%. Yeah. When people talk about, when you find investors and backers for what you're working on, that it's like a marriage and it's going to last longer than the average like American marriage, like they're right. Like it's, this is a years long venture and endeavor. If, you're fortunate enough to have the opportunity to be even somewhat successful. And so you just have to be ready for that and be ready to find the right people that believe in you personally, believe in your vision, because there are just a million things that can go wrong with a startup. And you have to kind of de-risk every piece of that you possibly can, and finding like a group of people or a person that believes in like the vision and mission. Like if you are true to yourself and you're intellectually honest, like it's just a nice thing to have out of the way.
Well, I always like to think of various aspects of life like a game of chess, and a startup is no different. I think that the variance of that game of chess is how difficult is your opponent. And if you're thinking about building a startup, you're going against like Russia in terms of those chess masters that we all saw on Queen's Gambit and so forth. So, I think that the startup grind not only takes a vision, but it takes a real backing of the passion that comes behind it, aside from that of just a great idea. Now, just to summarize for those who are listening, in today's discussion that I have with Joe, what we're looking to really get into is what does social influence have on trading, and how can you use social data to otherwise impact your decisions when it comes to trading mechanics, and when you're going to enter market, when you're going to exit, how you're going to leverage various tools on 3Commas, and perhaps what is the future for LunarCrush with regards to API integration and potentially otherwise leveraging that for autonomous behaviors when it comes to your social trading aspects. So Joe, why don't we start just kind of maybe if you want to give a little bit of a dive into the platform, and we can like go from there. And I'd love to learn more about how you guys see traders using LunarCrush to their advantage.
Sure. Yeah. So, as we're, like I mentioned, as we're aggregating all of this data across the different social networks, we're pulling this in, and we're showing that data across our coin detail pages for each project. What we're also doing is we're kind of parsing that data out into a bunch of different social metrics. And so, we have things like social contributors, and you can think about that as almost like the unique individuals. So if I'm out there and I say Ethereum or ETH, 20 times in one day, I'm just one person. I'm one contributor, right? And so we want to know kind of what is that baseline
number of contributors. Yeah.
Right. Individuals.
And how does that, if you could share with us your screen and show us how that looks on your platform, that would be great.
Yeah. So what you're looking at here is one of our coin detail pages, and we're looking at Chainlink. And, the way that we're kind of parsing out this data right now, I'm looking at price versus the total number of contributors. And this is over a 1 year timeline. And so you can see kind of each day, how many unique individuals were out there talking about Chainlink. And, I'm just going to point to a little correlation, and correlation does not always equal causation. But as you're kind of looking through these contributors, you're seeing a little bit of a trend line here across Chainlink, with how many people are out there talking about it. And then as I go in here and I'm kind of filtering through that, I can start to look at a couple of different aspects of this. Now, contributors, we said, was individuals. Social volume is actual mentions. So when I'm out there and I say, Chainlink, I used ETH before, but I'm using Chainlink and I'm saying this, 25 times in one day, it's counting all of that. So we're kind of looking at a little bit different of a metric of, how maybe bullish or bearish is someone as they're out there kind of talking about Chainlink over and over again. And so you're going to see, once in a while, you're going to see a little bit bigger of spikes in something like this. And, you're seeing out here like 29,000 mentions of Chainlink on this day. Or you're seeing, 31,000 mentions of Chainlink on this day. And then
do you
another
have notification systems and things of that, or is that going to be part of the upcoming API where the people can utilize this type of behavior to enact certain trades or actions?
So we have an alerting system that's already built. So you can go in here, and what you can do is you can set any sort of alert for any project across any of these indicators. And so if you're looking for potentially a social volume spike above, 90%, we'll say, of what, is the average for Chainlink, you can do that. And you can do that across any project. And so there's actually a couple of cool pieces that we've kind of built in here, with our insights. And so okay, Chainlink, literally right there. Chainlink's social dominance measured hit 1.675%, which is 300% above the 7-day average.
And that's just in the last 2 hours, essentially.
Yes. And so as I click on that, you saw this little kind of icon, this bubble come right here, and say this is where this kind of happened on the graph. And, I'm not sure what's going on with Chainlink at this very moment, but our insights are pretty impressive right now. So what we're doing for our insights, outside of you being able to go and set alerts across everything, we're now automatically looking for these anomalies.
Now, how do you determine then so I would imagine that there's a way that you can determine through sentiment or types of tweets and so forth, whether that's bullish or bearish. Are people upset? Are people happy? Or is that something where now my job is to go on Twitter and find out what's going on?
Sentiment is an interesting thing.
Sentiment's tough, right?
It's as we've looked at sentiment and we've trained tens of thousands, not hundreds of thousands of different pieces of content for pure sentiment across do we think this is very bearish or do we think this is very bullish? And what you kind of find is the crypto market is always bullish, or at least leaning towards
the
being
90%, right?
So it's we're doing a couple of things there where we're trying to kind of tighten the standard deviation on that data set to see, if the market's always 67% bullish, if that goes down to 63 or up to 72, maybe we kind of tighten the window on that set of data to try and understand it a little bit more.
That raises a good question too, is which with these notifications and so forth that you have, I mean, I feel that most traders at 3Commas, as I mentioned, are looking for that leading edge of how am I going to know this before somebody else? How tight can the parameters be set to get an early indication of a breakout or something of that with regards to social dominance or anything of that to get that extra edge?
I mean, the data is real time. So we have tons of look back periods. And so social is not the same as price, where it does take time for something potentially to go viral, right?
Yeah.
If something's posted out there, it's not going viral that very second. It's
an interesting snowball effect that comes with it. Yeah.
Correct. And so we kind of have to bucketize, if you will, the data a little bit. And we look at hourly data. But in that same time period, we're always looking back every minute to the last hour and trying to understand where some of these variations are at. And so that alert triggered based on a 7-day average, and social dominance is market dominance, market cap, but for social. So if there's 2 million pieces of crypto specific content that we have that we're collecting every single day, what that is telling us, this social dominance, is that Chainlink is now moved up to almost 1.675% of the entire market of social. And now Bitcoin always runs very hot. People are constantly talking about Bitcoin, people are constantly talking about Ethereum, but when there's other projects that suddenly kind of bump into those higher levels of social dominance, it's very difficult to do. Every project's attempting to do that and trying to kind of get their voice out there and be heard and create news and create a buzz. And so what we're doing is we're listening across all of social to figure out is there an anomaly there with regards to that social dominance, and social volume, unique dominance, all of that is that's one set subset of metrics. We've got a couple more proprietary metrics that we've also created, looking at alt rank here. Alt rank is a combination of a bunch of different types of metrics. We're looking at a project's price performance against Bitcoin over time. We're looking at, is there enough market volume so this thing can be tradable? And is that market volume kind of moving up or down? And then we're looking at the social aspect of what's happening with that project as well. And so if something's alt rank starts to kind of move up, and this is something that I look at like constantly. And it's like, as someone that's looking to kind of make an entry into a project and kind of hold for a certain subset of time, I'm not kind of the person, and never have been really, I've never found success in going and kind of day trading in and out. I mean, I've tried many times. For me, there's something that's much more simple about looking at kind of macro trends. And like, that's where I've always found the most success. But with alt rank,
surely
it's super cool.
That way. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe I just say it's much easier. But with alt rank, it's cool because, if we have 3,500 different cryptocurrencies that we're looking at, to be in the top 100 alt rank is difficult. And so as you kind of look at it almost as like a moving average, right? As the alt rank starts to kind of come down over time, you might start to see some.
That's how you can tell that communities are otherwise leaving essentially, and maybe perhaps migrating to other projects, or that they're losing that essential, I guess, community size. Maybe they have a bleed out where they're looking at shinier objects, right?
Yeah. Or maybe the current audience is not as vocal, right? So like I could say if I'm looking
less
at
excitement, less news, maybe.
Yes. So like Chainlink could be like a good one. I'm trying to find a graph that like is a little bit less tight. But it's like, if you're looking at Chainlink over time and you're looking at it against a couple different metrics, like, if we're looking at and saying like, hey, are there less social contributors on Chainlink today than there were a year ago? Right. That has to be an indicator that you're looking at. Right. And then like alt rank might kind of make a move up right now. And we might think that, hey, that's probably more of a short-term movement right here, where Chainlink might have a move up. But do I think like, 5 years from now, Chainlink is going to be, worth more than it is today, or outperform the market based on where it's at? If I'm knowing that the community if the community is shrinking, that's a tough call to make right there. So it just kind of depends on the type of trader you are and the way that you want to look at the data. And that's kind of what we're trying to show.
And how do you determine which projects you otherwise support on your platform in that?
Everyone. Like, we're not partial. Like, we're trying to, anyone that's out there trying to grow their project, like, we're going to start like listening for that project and start listening to their social and what's going on out there. And so it's like, what we're going to do is we're going to add that project, start listening to the social. We can do that even before they have like a price or they're traded out there. So
do you
we start
index
to
this, or how is it that you find the projects? Like, is it through CoinMarketCap, CoinGecko, or just like a scraper of some kind, looking for dollar signs and hashtags?
We have 10 to 20 projects like a week that apply to be on LunarCrush. And so,
so you have a good point,
the projects find us at this point. We're kind of like one of the stops in the market where it's like, when you're launching a new project, it's like, you want to, if you want to get on Etherscan, BSC scan, you want to get on Polyscan, you want to get all of those places, you want to get on LunarCrush, you want to get on CoinGecko, you want to get in CoinMarketCap. Like, they're trying to get this kind of purview of, they know where all the audience is looking at the market. And so they're going to us. And so it started with us, having to go out and just find everything, make sure we had enough, but now it's kind of inbound to us.
And what is the size of your current audience approximately, or at least like the rate of growth that you've had, if you can't share specifics?
Yeah, I mean, we have a couple million monthly active users that are part of the project. We'll do anywhere from 100 million to 200
and tremendously,
million.
you are monetizing that through advertising, which is, in itself kind of an accolade.
We've never paid for growth. And we've never been paid for growth. I will say, though, that we are starting to investigate some boosted content, but we want to do that. For us, we have to be indifferent, right? Like, we are a research platform, and like, the data speaks for itself. Like, we launched Lunar Token in October, right? But we've never posted that, like, from our LunarCrush account about Lunar Token being a top alt rank or whatever else. Like, we're trying to stay out of that completely, because
like the Google,
that's
we aren't going to
why people come to us.
things we don't like,
Yeah.
So
yes.
Okay. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about Lunar Token real quick, and how that interfaces with this?
Sure. So Lunar Token is a utility token that's integrated into every facet of LunarCrush. So in order to get access to things like more timelines, more data, our alerts features, everything that's like a little bit more advanced, people have to basically level up. And so right now there's a couple of different levels that are part of LunarCrush. Level 1, 2, 3, 4. And you need to hold a certain amount of Lunar, 30 Lunar for level 2, 100 Lunar for level 3, and 500 Lunar for level 4.
Little stake or locking mechanism.
Yeah. So they hold a little bit of Lunar and they get access to everything that's out there. And so the cool part about that is they can either stake Lunar and they can earn APR on that, or as they're kind of interacting with LunarCrush, just the same way that they've always interacted, they're earning little bits of Lunar along the way. So they're doing things like providing like opinions on the market. And so
very
they can come in here
in that way.
Yeah. So we're collecting, over 4 million opinions every day from the people in the cryptocurrency market.
Wow.
And, we're looking at things like which influencers are creating valuable content. How do you feel about a certain project today? Like Pancake right now. So I don't know what they did wrong today, but they're usually really high up there.
And I'm curious, this is more of a personal question. And so how do you ensure that these are real users giving real data insights and not people just scraping coins?
So that's where we just released like a new white paper actually, because when we first launched, like, yes, we were giving away a certain amount of Lunar a day. And it was a larger amount that I think, was probably a little bit offsetting with regards to how much people can earn. But that's where we've kind of changed and diverged a little bit, where it's such a small amount now, where this is also like a V1 of this project here. But we're going to announce some new stuff where, potentially you might lose Lunar or lose points, if you are maybe off center with, the way that the market is thinking. But right now it's people basically earn points and at the end of the
manipulative behaviors. So the reason I ask is that this is a really interesting and unique data set. Like people can use this and it seems to be like very unique where you can't find it other places. And there's a big enough of a data set that I'm sure that it offsets any of that skew potentially.
Yeah. So this is like, you'll start to, right now we're just kind of asking kind of like fun questions about whether or not this person creates good content, or like, do they think Bitcoin's going to go to, 250,000 by the end of 2022? But you'll start to see questions here in the future of, where do you think Bitcoin will be in the next 15 days or 30 days? And as different users start to answer these questions, the more accurate
binary in that,
the more accurate they become, the better. And also we have something called profile strength.
I was going to say there must be a weighting based on the type of activities you see that gives someone more influence than the next.
Yes. And so as people come in, they're connecting their like MetaMask account, their Coinbase wallet, they're connecting their Twitter account. And so something obviously we do really well is look at people's Twitter accounts and determine whether or not they're influential. And so we give a profile strength to all of our users that are connecting everything. And so as these kind of opinions, we continue to collect these opinions, we can parse them out based on profile strength. So if you have 4 years of longevity of trading, and like a part of your account, your opinion is going to matter a little bit more than maybe that someone that's just started a couple of weeks ago. But that person that started a couple of weeks ago, if they end up being much more accurate on everything, they can catch up really quickly.
Got it. Well, I have 2 other questions for you, Joe. One, I'd love to learn more just about like the influencer aspect of this. And I mean, just as you're going over opinions, the crypto space is filled with just that, opinions. And most people don't know, who can I trust? Who really is going to provide something of an impactful opinion that isn't just a shill and isn't something, that's unimportant to me otherwise. So what is this section here and how can this provide value to the average trader?
So as you're looking through our influencer section, what we're doing is, anyone, you have to have at least 500 followers. And as these folks are out there talking about different cryptocurrencies, we're also aggregating which ones that they're talking about. And we're also looking for things like, sometimes people are just looking for people to follow, and they're looking for kind of the influential people that are out there. And so we're trying to provide that, but we're also providing kind of like this frequency of which projects that they're talking about. And so they could see, you look at someone like a Cointelegraph, I would say a year ago, this Bitcoin number was probably like 90%. Right? They're only talking about Bitcoin and a couple other projects. Now they're kind of branching out a little bit more as, they've realized, and I think a lot of the market has realized that, Bitcoin might be more dependent on the token market than the token market is dependent on Bitcoin over time. That's just a personal opinion. No one hate me for it out there. But, as we're, documenting Bitcoin, like we're looking through and saying, okay, 99% of the time, this person's talking about Bitcoin. So it's just an interesting way to go in here and really understand, who's out there, how much are they talking about everything, what kind of engagement are they getting? Are they getting quality engagement? How is their post frequency looking? And then, what are the tweets that are out there that are getting the most engagement? We've done a couple of things like, we don't give, and like there's influence is not given for things like giveaways. So if you're seeing people just do a bunch of giveaways that are out there, but yet they're kind of ranking, you're going to see, okay, this might not be the type of person that I want to follow. Sure. One thing we don't have yet that we are looking into is alerts based on influencers. So if there is an influencer that potentially posts about a new project for the first time that they've never posted about before, we want people to be able to kind of set alerts based on some of those things, which I think lends a little bit more into the trading aspect. But I would say from a direct trading aspect, this is more of like research and discovery, and really kind of coming in here and double checking maybe a little bit of your work. You can see LunarCrush in there, just kind of fun because taking
organic indexing.
We've been tweeting out there for years, and it's like, not until the last like 6 months finally are like, holy cow,
finally are indexing into
we're on our own thing. It's kind of fun. But yeah, you can kind of see, and then you're looking at this over like time periods as well. Are they influential? Influential is kind of our take on everything. Most engagement is just the same kind of social engagement, retweets, upvotes on Reddit, like unique links, everything else, and then followers and posts if people want to see that too.
Very cool.
Yes.
Great. Well, I think that's incredibly helpful. And so what I'd like to kind of talk about next before we wrap this discussion is we teased a little bit earlier about, what does the future of LunarCrush look like with regards to API, with regards to how this might integrate in some sort of a greater capacity for traders who prefer automated and algorithmic trading.
Yeah, no, love to talk about it.
And this is theory crafting, just to be clear, but there's definitely, there's data, and then there's the ability to leverage that data for autonomous behaviors. So just curious what you think might be the future in that aspect.
Yeah. And, when we actually started, it was like the API is the first thing we built. Everything that we have is built on top of our API. And we that's where we actually thought we were going to start as a business, is like, hey, we're gonna have this API, and like all these exchanges are going to use it, and all these other like sites are going to use it.
Or enterprise, right?
Yeah, and I mean, we very quickly realized that no one really understood this data yet. Like I was saying, this is before like Wall Street Bets, and this went super mainstream, and meme stocks and meme coins and everything else. And so we've always had the API. It's been out there. There's like commercial partners that are currently using it, for a lot of different types of like aspects. Like there's major exchanges that use it to figure out who to list next. There's news sites. There's all sorts of different ways that people utilize it. But with the launch of Lunar Token, what we wanted to do is basically kind of feed everything in through that utility. And so we're reworking the API right now. We're coming up with a really cool payment system where people are going to basically be able to pay with whatever they want and get a credit, and like a rate limiting system. It's something that's never been done. And so we're building that from scratch, which is going to be super cool. It's like, imagine paying, with Binance Coin for the LunarCrush API, and we know exactly how many calls you get, right? Based on the current like Oracle that's out there in price and whatnot. So long story short, the API is going to get re-released here pretty soon. We have a wait list of over 15,000 right now that want to be a part of it. And part of that is that there are a couple people out there that have been using it and finding a lot of success in, basically putting social signals on top of maybe some of the stuff that they're already doing, and kind of finding an outperformance there when they kind of inject an alt rank or a galaxy score, or, hey, I'm only going to be trading on the projects that are in the top 25 alt rank right now because there's action there, right? There's a million different ways to kind of splice the data, which make it fun. And like our alerting system, like we have hundreds of thousands of alerts that are set. And very rarely would someone ever set two of the same alerts, like especially on the social side. For price, sure, like 5% price goes up, whatever. But from the social side, there are so many different ways to splice it that, it's going to be up to the trading community to kind of find that needle in the haystack where, it's there and we see it and we're utilizing it on our side. But what we've always wanted to do at LunarCrush is basically bring the same type of tools that institutions have had and the advantages that they've had to the retail market. And we want to do it for a much cheaper and inexpensive way. Hedge funds have been looking at a lot of this data that we've had for a long time, not the exact same way. They've, it's a little bit different, but
in a dashboard or something.
They're looking at it. They're looking at social. And so we've been able to bring that to retail. And so with the API, like we want to do the same thing. And we
kind of leveling out the playing field, an equal playing field for all in that respect.
That's what crypto is about.
It is decentralization and democratization, I suppose you can say, right?
Yeah, no, we always talk about democratizing opportunity across the market. And, like a good example is like Coinbase, right? Like forget who it was that invested $300,000 into Coinbase, and now they have like $4 billion. Like imagine if everyone could have just invested $5 and gotten a new house. Yeah. Like I think that's a better world to live in. And so that's kind of the mission that we've always
read a study that the reason that I think like majority, like is heavier than 60% 1% invest in crypto is to buy a house. So like, I think that's always like the holy grail for everybody in that way. So,
yeah.
well, Joe, this has
we
been
can
a
deep
fantastic
dive into the millennial generation and, everyone, not being able to afford houses. But I feel like that is one of the things where people like get those hard
podcasts too for that one.
Yeah.
Well, Joe, this has been a fantastic conversation with you. Where can people follow you, learn more about LunarCrush? Like, where's the best source of knowledge or information if they want to stay up to date on these new API developments and so forth?
Yeah, so they can go check out the wait list. If you just sign up for LunarCrush, log into your account, there's like a wait list for the API if they want to get access to that. And then you can always just follow us at LunarCrush on Twitter, at Lunar Token, LUNR Token, to hear updates there, or at Joe Vez if you want to follow my ramblings on Twitter. But yeah, we're always out there trying to post the latest, greatest information and make sure everyone's up to date on what's going on.
Fantastic. Well, Joe, thank you so much for taking time to chat with us here. If anybody listening, if you want to see LunarCrush to come to 3Commas with their indicators or anything of that, drop a comment in the comments below, toss in a feedback submission, anything of that. We'd love to hear what you have to think about LunarCrush. And furthermore, thank you again once for listening to the 3Commas podcast.
Thanks, Jared.